Obviously, Hashem has this very specific mandate for the Jewish people and for every individual, and it helps to understand what that is, because the more that you're able to understand what is specifically Kosh Baruch Hu is looking for, what He's judging you on, the more you can address that issue. Is it only a question of davening? Is it only a question of thinking about tshuva and trying to do things a little better next year? Or is there, and what specifically is that tshuva? What's the tshuva that we're doing in the first place? As the Gemara says, in Sota, Ein Adam Choitel Shenichs Baruch Shtus. A person that only does a chet, will only make a mistake, will only go against the Kosh Baruch Hu if they're overcome by a spirit of insanity. Now, people make mistakes all the time. When people make or do averas, they don't consider themselves to be insane when it's actually taking place. A moment of weakness, right? But the Gemara is saying that basically, if a person understood and appreciated, as the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, that what the damage is being done by the chet, whatever gain a person thinks they're going to have through the chet, or just by being sloppy and doing a mitzvah, whatever gain they're going to have, has to be weighed out against the loss, basically. The same way, for example, if a person invested money in a company or in anything that was unchecked, they didn't know, but they didn't know specifically what the company was about, whether it's a good company, bad company, and if it's a small amount of money, people don't care. If a person takes hard-earned cash, hard-earned money, and invests into a stock, into a company, into some type of investment, without checking it out, and especially since it has a reputation of not doing well, right? Even though they seem fully cognizant of what they're doing, I know, I checked it out, a little bit, but whatever, I'll take my chances, like playing, it's like gambling over here, a little gamble, it's not. So even though he seems sane, the reality is a person will even say, you're insane. How can you do it? That's crazy, right? It's insane. How can you invest your money like that in a company and risk so much? It's crazy, right? So insanity does not always mean, in the classic sense of the term, the person's completely out of touch with reality. It means the person's out of touch with reality enough that they're willing to gamble away something very precious, very valuable, that in their mind seems an okay thing, right? But in reality, in the long term, the loss is much greater than any gain, right? And that's a function of perspective. That's a function of intellectual clarity, right? So the Gemara is saying basically that a person will only do a chet when they're overcome by a spirit of insanity. It means that a person would never do a chet if they were clear about what life is about, what Hashem wants from you, what you're going to lose by not doing the right thing, by not exercising your free will properly, by not extending yourself to take advantage of every life opportunity that comes before you, right? That's a crazy thing. If you understood what you're losing, you wouldn't do it that way. Even you would say, that's crazy. People often after the fact, later on, they go back and say, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? How could I have done a thing like that? How could I possibly, just like, for example, just saw in the newspapers today, I guess it was big news here a couple of days ago, that this person who, the bicycle rider who was holding to the side of the car got killed in the end. I don't know exactly all the details what happened, but this guy's a major politician who all of a sudden, with the paper that was all talking about how he retained this communication company to try to rebuild his reputation. Just one small, silly little accident, and it results in such a catastrophe where somebody dies, and not just the person dying himself, but his whole career could be washed up. He was going out for dinner with his wife or something, and it was just a nice evening. Very simple thing, how many times you go out, you come home, you go out, you come home, and everything is normal, right? Nothing changes. Your life is enhanced because of the experience. And then one time you go out, and all of a sudden, that one specific time, you make a mistake, right? You lose perspective. And that loss of perspective, that little mistake, changes everything in life, everything. And you say, what was I thinking? Or what was that person thinking? What was that person doing? You hear all these stories, what's been going on in the news lately, I'm going from one after the other. But the thing that always baffles us, and certainly baffles me, when I consider what the people involved, and then what they were doing, and what it resulted in, and the risk that was taken, that they thought would be okay, and how the whole thing backfired, and you try and go into their mind. What was the person thinking? What they think could possibly happen? How they would get away with this thing, and how it would be worth it in the end if they do get away with it in the end? It's like crazy. So that's what the Gemara means. The person loses their clarity. a person is not clear about what life is about and what Hashem expects from them, we lose our way along the way, and as a result of that, we lose perspective. The Gemara says that's called insanity. The moment you lose perspective, the moment you're not clear about what the moment has to offer to you and how to take advantage of it, and you miss that opportunity, you wash it away, you overlook it, and you skip over it, that's called insanity, the Gemara says. And you would never do it if you were clear from the beginning about what's taking place and what the opportunity was to grow and come close to Hashem and what it's going to cost you later on, either in Gehenna or in this world for that matter, you would never do a thing like that. So, it's very important to understand what it is at this time of the year in advance of Rosh Hashanah, right? Anila Dodi V'Dodi Li, it's a time to come close to Hashem. How do you actually come close to Hashem? How do you actually create that closeness itself? It's simply by getting up in the morning saying Slichos, just thinking about the Chagim itself, or is there something else you have to do, right? And then comes the Seir Semei Tshuva. When by the time we get to Yom Kippur, we're supposed to be like Malachim, angels, looking at the world with the clarity of Malachim. Right, to such an extent that we can even say, Baruch Shem Kavod Machuso, Ve'olam Ve'ed, blessed the name of the glorious King forever, a phrase we whisper all year round because the angels say that phrase, and they get upset when we humans say that phrase. We whisper it, so they can't quite hear us saying it, but on Yom Kippur we rise to such a fantastic level of clarity, that which is equal to the Malachim, that when they look at us, hey, so who's saying that? Oh, look, human angels, okay, we can live with that one. We can handle that, right? How do we get to a level like that? Is it only a dramatization, an exaggeration of what's really going on, or is there a reality to all of that that we can achieve by Yom Kippur? So it ties in basically to the book that I came back here to promote somewhat, the latest book that I was working on. And in a sense, it's the development or the evolution of an idea of a project that's been going on for many, many years, but it's a very fascinating concept because really, and I think appropriately, it's called the equation of life. The equation of life implies off the bat, the equation of life. Life is everything, the totality of what we're trying to become. It's the equation for this, right? Mathematical equation. We know what are the sides of the equation. What do you add? What do you subtract? The whole thing. But to appreciate what this means and what it means to us and what it should mean to us, I'm going to take you a little bit on a journey that I personally went through to get to this equation of life, because it didn't just show up, it's not recorded anywhere per se, it's really the result of a long process of an evolution of an idea that began many years ago, over 10, 15 years ago I believe. And it began really with the conclusion of the idea. Actually, the what do you call it? The other side, the equal sign. It's the quotient of the what do you call it? Something equals something. What's that part of the equation called? That's it. Yeah.
Equals equates to equals.
There's a special word for it, and I forgot what that word is. Going back to the answer, right? The answer. But it is the answer. And it's all summed up in a single number, and that number is 36. Years ago, I came across that number. It was taught to me. I saw it show up in various different sources. And the basic idea of this number 36, a very important number that describes the whole essence of what life is about, specifically for the Jewish people. The number 36, Chazal explained to us, represents the idea or the reality of what we call the Or HaGanuz, the hidden light of creation. What is the hidden light of creation? What is the Or HaGanuz? So it's right there in the Chumash. You open the Chumash and it says on the first day of Ma'aseh Bereshis, V'yom Elokim Yehi Or V'yihi Or. God said, let there be light, right? And there was Westinghouse. Well, not exactly, right? There was light, but not that kind of light. It wasn't even the sun, the moon, and the stars. Because the sun and the moon and the stars were not put into Shemayim until the fourth day of creation. So therefore, it was a special light. So where's this light? Where is it found? So Rashi says, and he's actually only quoting the Gemara, that says that when Hashem made this light, He looked into history, He looked down the road, and He saw that there are going to be evil people, Rashayim, right, who would abuse this light. So therefore, He hid it. Rosh Baruch Hu hid this light. Hence the term, the name, Or HaGanuz, the hidden light. So in the first in creation, the light that the Kodesh Baruch Hu made, He actually hid. Which means if it's hidden, it's not this light, because this light we all have. It's accessible. Not only is it accessible, but Rishoyim, evil people, can use it just like good people can use it. The sun, the moon, the stars, everybody's free to use that light. So this light was hidden away, right? We don't know much about it, except that the Gemara says, the Talmud Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud says, that the light came back and made a special guest appearance, even though it was hidden on the first day. Adam Harishon had access to this light in the first week, Erev Shabbos, 12 hours of Erev Shabbos, and 24 hours of Shabbos altogether, for a total of 36 hours. So once again, the number 36 shows up, representing the hidden light of creation. At Motzi Shabbos, Kodesh Baruch went back and re-hid the light. Because Adam had sinned, he had been judged, he was forced from the Garden of Eden, and the light was hidden away. But it comes back periodically, explain the rabbis, explain the Gemara, that every time a major miracle happens, for example, to free the Jews from Egypt, that's the Or HaGanuz. That's the light, that's the miraculous light. Another name for the light is Or HaNisi, the miraculous light. It's the light that Hashem used to do the Makus. The light that Kodesh Baruch Hu used and for the sake of splitting the Yam Suf, right? And it's the light, Chazal say, Kodesh Baruch Hu will use to do the miracles at the end of days for the sake of bringing about Yemot Mashiach. The same light. And this light is represented by the number 36. So they go one step further, because where do you hide this light? How do you take a light like that and actually hide it, right? So Chazal say that the light was actually hidden in 4 places. We already know one. One is the 36 hours of Shabbos, which is 24 hours plus the 12 hours of Erev Shabbos. That's one place, 36, right? What's another 36? Famous 36 is the 36 lights that we light over the course of 8 days for Hanukkah, right? Another place, the Bnei Yisrael says that that's a place you can actually access the Or HaGanuz is through the Hanukkah licht. The candles we light at Hanukkah time. It's not incidental that we light 36 candles. It's true that you add 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 4. It just seems to be, the main thing is you're adding candles. What's the total in the end? From the Gemara it seems incidental. But we see from this it's not incidental, it's not coincidental. It's meant to be 36 candles because this is a repository of the Or HaGanuz. What's another famous 36 that we now can make a connection to? Right? We know that in every generation there are 36 righteous people, says the Gemara, who go out to greet the face of the Shekhinah every single day. And if you look at these people, they exude light. They live by this light. They are personal and human repositories of the hidden light of creation. And one more 36, it's not so famous because people don't think in terms of that, but the actual Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud, has 36 tractates, and the Medrash implies that anybody who learns all 36 tractates will have access to the special light, the Or HaGadol, the Or HaGanuz. So 36 is a number that symbolizes the Or HaGanuz. That's what the number symbolizes, and frankly, the amazing thing is, I don't know if it's just with this number, but personally, ever since I got involved in this number, this light, the number keeps showing up all over the place, The only time it was negative was when I almost got run over by the 36 bus in Eretz Yisrael. But aside from that, it's all very, very positive. In fact, coming over here, the flight from London to New York, right, I got seat 36. For me, it's a big celebration, Seat 36. I was like, wow, I don't tell people these things because I think I'm a sugar, emphasizing, what are the odds? Okay, it happens once in a while. It happens more often than you know. But the amazing thing was, as I'm going to my seat 36, the captain, it's American Airlines, I've never ever had this happen before. He gets on the loudspeaker and he says, we'd like to welcome you all to American Airlines flight, whatever, but especially Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so who are on this flight on the way to America to celebrate their 36th anniversary. Wow. And just as we take off, as your pilot speaking, we will be cruising at an altitude of 36,000 feet. And I'm like going, did this guy read my book or something? The Hashkacha Pratis. It's like unbelievable. But this number shows up and it shows up and it shows up and it shows up at the Chumash all over the place, especially by Yaakov Avinu. Right? He's away from home altogether for 36 years. Right? Mr. Hanukkah himself. Right? He's mamish rooted in Hanukkah. It's a different shir, but that's the idea. As a result of that, right, his wife Leah, the Gematria of Leah, of course, is 36, and Rachel dies at the age of 36. Why? Because in the 36th year of his journey coming back home, she has to die before entering the borders of Eretz Yisrael, because the Avos kept the entire Torah inside Eretz Yisrael. And if you open the Chumash and Parshas Apr, I believe it is, and also this way, Parshas Apr, where it mentions that a man cannot be married to two living sisters at the same time. Right? And he was. In Chutz La'aretz he could do it, but not in Eretz Yisrael. And how many, and that's called the Isser Krisus. Because anybody who does, in the word chorus, right, anybody who does gets excited, gets cut off from the Jewish people. And how many Isuri Krisos are there in the Chumash? 36 altogether. So to avoid breaking one of the 36 Krisos, what am I going to do? What can I possibly do? Because Baruch Hu took care of it. His wife died in the 36th year of life, to avoid the situation, the problem. So the number by Yaakov Avinu keeps showing up all over the place. You can read the book. There's a whole list of them. Basically, goes on and through Tanakh. It's a number, and what does this number represent? So we learn from Hanukkah, right? There are 36 candles, and the Gemara says you cannot place a menorah higher than 20 amas. Why? Because the whole point of the menorah is pursuing Nisa, to reveal the miracle of Hanukkah. So everybody has to be able to see the light, to be reminded that God did a fantastic miracle for the Jewish people, the time of the Hashmonai. So this light, this number, is not only representing the Or HaGanuz, it's actually representing the idea of revealing that light. Right? Or HaGanuz implies it's hidden. Right? But 36 is telling you the light has been revealed. So every time the light's going to be revealed, the number 36 is going to show up. That's the way it works, basically, conceptually. And that was enough for me. You know, when I first saw this number and saw the idea, it's beautiful. I named a website after it, basically, did all my writings after it, and I got to my 36th year, made a big celebration. It was important enough to just that alone. But it didn't end over there. In the course of learning more things, it turns out that this light that Hashem used to make creation and performs all the miracles and gives all the Torah, basically is also represented by another number. You don't have this normally. Usually in Judaism, one number per concept. Other numbers might connect, but not two numbers for the same idea. It turns out the number 25 also represents the Or HaGanuz. For example, in the verse it says, V'yomer Elokim Yehi Or, right? The Gematria of the word Yehi is 25. So therefore, the verse can actually read, V'yomer Hashem, God said, 25 is the light. Right? And the light was created. So 25 also becomes the number that symbolizes the Or HaGanuz. As a result of that, the Shema has 25 letters. To remind us, because the Shema is the mission statement of the Jewish people. And what is the mission of the Jewish people? To be an Or L'Goyim. What does it mean to be an Or L'Goyim? It means to reveal this light that's hidden in creation into the world. We call it a Kiddush Hashem, the sanctification of God's name. Every time the Goyim stand back and they say, wow, look at that, there must be a God, because look, it's happened to the Jewish people. The 6-day war, the miracles that take place for Klal Yisrael, people stand back and say, there must be a God, because look what's happening for the sake of the Jewish people. That's a gilui of this light, right? 25 shows up all over the place. In fact, the first time the word Or shows up in the Chumash, it's the 25th word in the Torah itself. So it turns out that number 25 also represents the Or HaGanuz. So now I had a problem. Now I'm stuck, right? Why two numbers for one concept? What's the point? What do you need it for? So a little further investigation, some more thought, thinking it through. It turns out because, unlike other ideas, this light has two facets, has two aspects. Right? Just for example, a human being goes through different stages of life versus a baby, then a young child, an adolescent, a teenager. We have a name for every stage, right? So likewise, this light also has two stages: its hiddenness and its revelation. So it turns out that since the number 25 is associated with the light when it's first being created, 25 is the number that represents the light while still hidden within creation. It's there, but hidden, right? 36 is a number that tells you it's been brought out. It's been revealed. As a result, right? The only holiday to fall on the 25th day of the month, of course, is Hanukkah, which you begin to light 36 candles. At the end, it's all revealed, right? And that's why when God comes to Adam Harishon after the Chet, after the sin of eating the tree of knowledge of good and evil, what does he say? Right? He doesn't say, where are you? That's the translation. Right? There's no Gematria to those words. What does he say? Ayeka, which we translate as where are you, but there's no such thing as Ayeka. You won't find it anywhere else in Tanakh. You won't find it in the dictionary. Right? We translate the word as where are you, because that's more or less the context, but the Medrash says the word Ayek is really meant as a Gematria. What's the Gematria of Ayek? Is 36. So Adam makes the mistake. What's the whole thing he's supposed to do? Adam, I made you to extract the light through your deeds and reveal it. You've eaten the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You didn't reveal the light. You hid the light. So Ayek is 36. Where's the light? Where's the revelation? But it's more than that, because the word Ayek can also be divided into two parts. Aya, Ko. Where's the 25? In one word, God has come to Adam Harishon and said, the light that I made to be revealed in creation, represented by the number 25, which would have resulted in the light of 36 had you done it properly, it blew the whole thing. Now go fix it up with the rest of history. So that's 25, two numbers for one concept, because the concept has two stages, two facets. 25 when it's still hidden, 36 when it's finally revealed. Follow so far? You all with me over here? So how do you do that? Obviously Torah, mitzvahs, but it's not so pashut. It's not so simple. You know why? Because we see that from people make big mistakes. A lot of times, even through our Torah mitzvah doesn't always come out the proper way. As it says in Parshas Vayeschanan, if you're doing it the right way, the world will stand back in awe and appreciation of what you're accomplishing. They'll be impressed at what you do. If you don't do it the right way, they're going to laugh at you and make fun of you. Are we at the top of the totem pole today, or the very bottom of the totem pole today? The world is choosing the Arab world. They began Ramadan, when we begin our Chagim, what we do, we get dressed up and we prepare ourselves, and there's a certain aspect of shalom bayis, past the preparations, when you're fighting about getting things done in time. But there's an atmosphere of achdus in the Chagim, right? On Thanksgiving Day in America, or long weekends here, people don't fight against each other, and the world is choosing them over us. Something's not going right over here. It's not just because of the non-Frum Jews, because lately in the papers it's been the Frum Jews who've been caught doing things and getting some bad press over here amongst ourselves. So it's not just the doing of Torah mitzvahs. How do you actually go from the 25 to the 36? How do you do that? Right? What's the path? That's the path, of course, of Yiddishkeit. True Yiddishkeit. That's what HaKadosh Baruch was evaluating on the Yemei Norayim, on Rosh Hashanah. He wants to know how true you were to this process of going from the number 25 to 36, of recognizing the light and revealing the light. The very fact that people can be frum and not appreciate the importance of Eretz Yisrael and of living there and of going yearning for it and fulfill that mitzvah, in spite of the fact they're keeping Shabbos and kashrus and all these other mitzvahs and taras and mishpachas, but they don't appreciate, there's something missing from that path from 25 to 36. Because Eretz Yisrael exists specifically to go from 25 to 36. So how do you do it? So fiddling around, I thought, well, it's quite simple. Just add 11. Right? Just add 11. Right? 25 plus 11 equals 36. Now that's mathematically true. And I didn't come 6,000 miles to tell you that. More than likely you already appreciate that fact, right? 25 plus 11 equals 36. The question was, or is that also conceptually true? Is it more profound than simply a mathematical equation? Because you don't find things like that. You find fantastic gematrias, tremendous gematrias where they equal one another and they allude to one another, but you don't find anywhere in all of Yiddishkeit that I'm aware of where a simple and elegant mathematical equation sums up all of history and all of life. Can you imagine reducing everything? It's like they're looking for the theory of everything. The scientists and physicists, they broke it down from 100 equations to 50 equations to finally down to 4 equations. But they're looking for that one equation which of course is the Shema, but they're not going to look over there, right? That sums up all the forces of creation in a single idea. That's elegant. That's profound, right? And we come along and say, yeah, it's quite simple. 25 plus 11 equals 36. We know 25, we know 36, but is it conceptually true? It turns out it's perfectly conceptually true. Why? Because it turns out, according to Kabbalah, that 11 is a number that represents the concept which we call das, or dot, right? Which means knowledge. But not just simple knowledge, specific knowledge. Not just knowledge of how the world works. We call das Elokim. Right? As Shlomo HaMelech wrote, if you cherish it like money and like buried treasures, then you will understand and achieve das Elokim. So it's true. If you achieve this concept called das, if you're able to access this thing called das, the das will allow you to look at creation in such a way that you'll be able to see the light that's hidden away and understand how to reveal it. That's the difference between a person who really is a partner with the Kadosh Baruch Hu in the shleimus of Maaseh Bereshis and somebody who's simply a good foot soldier, just doing his job, right? Keeping the Torah, doing the mitzvahs, right? Waiting for things to transpire, to get to the end. But a true partner is somebody like a Yaakov Avinu, and that's what it was. That's why Yaakov specifically is associated with the number 36. He understood. It was a specific das, knowledge and awareness of creation and how the world works that allowed him to look at everything creation, see the light that was hidden within it, and to reveal it. When I take money, right? You see a penny on the ground, right? How many people pick up a penny? Good for you. What do you do with it? Right? Who buys gum?
I put it in my tzedakah box in the car.
Yeah, because a person says, that's just a penny. What kind of person buys a penny? But we all know, another penny, right? What happens if an ani has to go buy a loaf of bread, he's short by 1 penny? That's one day, that's myself. So I bend down, pick up this penny. What difference it makes tzedakah-wise, But can you imagine if this person goes to the Makol to buy a loaf of bread, he got tzedakah from this gabbai, right? And he's 1 penny short, and I go to Shemai at the end of days, and this person, he dies because he couldn't buy a loaf of bread fast enough because it was 1 penny short, the penny I could have picked up. So you look at this person, wait, you crazy? What are you, the sugar nut? What kind of stories are you making up over here? Right? There's a story in the Gemara like this with Nachum Ishgamzu, right, where he was riding a donkey and he met a poor person along the way, and the poor person said, Rebbe, befarnus me, give me some parnasa. I need, no problem, right away. I'll get off my donkey, open my sack without even doing anything else but that, and give you your food and save your life. He does that, and in the seconds that he's doing that, the person dies. And because he dies, right, he throws himself upon the person and says, the eyes that saw you that didn't have pity, let them be poked out, let them be, taken, removed. The body that didn't respond fast, and he curses his entire body and literally dies, a complete invalid because of his own curse, to fix up the mistake he made. We don't appreciate how much light there is in creation. And how much what we can do when you help somebody, when you take a moment, for example, you're walking off the airplane. This happens, see this all the time. You walk at the airplane, and you could go, and you stand back. It's clearly you're a frum Jew. Maybe it's started by a woman because the person wearing a shirt that I always recognize. But a man, wearing a black hat, payas, sits his hanging down. It's kind of hard to miss it, Still wearing the filamentalis, and let's now stand back and you say, it's okay, you go ahead. They go, thank you very much, right? And the light that you revealed at that moment changes creation and becomes your schar in the world to come. People, we watch from people who don't think about what's going on around them, how to respond to it. And we're all guilty of the same thing at some point in time. But you see them miss fantastically beautiful opportunities to be a Kiddush Hashem, which means to take the light 25 and really become 36. And people notice it. It's mashpia. It's a certain depth. It's a certain perspective you have to know how to function in the world. Yaakov has that das. Right? And the number 11 symbolizes it. Why? Because the 11th sphere, there's really only 10, but it's kind of a pseudosphere, is the sphere called das. And that's why, to look at Patumah Ketoris, right, the whole mention of the Ketoris, there are 11 spices. Because the incense offering corresponds to the quality of the concept called das. But it was years later Years later, where I finally came to understand and saw the reason why 11 makes such a difference. Because it turns out, it's a long piece of Torah to go into, it's a little bit Kabbalistic, actually it's a lot Kabbalistic, right?
You have the audience.
Thank you. But the basic idea is when Hashem was making Maaseh Bereshis, right, and He was elevating all the lights and rectifying them for the sake of creating the world and making a habitat in which man could live and use his free will, He left over a certain amount of lights unrectified, and those were 11 lights. 11 lights did not ascend. They had to be rectified. Not eating from the 8th of Das Tovah before Shabbos and on day 6 of Maaseh Bereshis would have done that. He didn't do that. The rest of our history is for the sake of doing exactly that. So that's why, for example, the solar year is longer than the lunar year, which corresponds to the Jewish people by 11 days. Right? That's why there are 11 parochos, 11 curtains in the Beis Hamikdash. So 11 shows up all over the place because 11 is a number that represents the idea of Das. But it turns out, and that's also, by the way, why it was an 11-day journey from Har Sinai to Eretz Yisrael. Had we been ready to take the journey, we would have rectified the Das, fixed up the world, transformed 24 to 36, and brought the Gula right then and there. We didn't do that, of course, because here we are still living in exile. The Chumash speaks specifically about it. When Moshe Rabbeinu died, 11 Mizmorim were forgotten, it says. Right? And not only that, but as long as these lights are not rectified the way they're supposed to be, they have a negative impact. As a result of that, if you go into the Chumash and you open it up to the chiefs of Esav, how many are there altogether? 11 Alufi Esav, 11 chieftains, because as long as the Das is not being rectified, it can be negative Das, because we know, we look at the world. There's positive Das, and there's negative Das. What's positive Das? Torah, the proper understanding towards life, connecting to Kodesh Baruch Hu, elevating yourself in the world around you. What's negative Das? Just walk the streets, go downtown, take a look at what people think, what they do, how they act, how they behave. It's absolutely remarkable. I mean, you just travel around. This came from London. It's just absolutely remarkable. Just take a subway and see what people think by the way they behave and the way they dress. Movies, just it's like unbelievable what people perform in movies and do. This is called Das. It's a Das. It's a way of thinking, but it's a negative Das. So it turns out there's not only 11 positive 11, there's also negative 11 because there's positive Das and there's negative Das as well. So 25 with the positive Das, the proper perspective, allows a person to take that light that's hidden away, the 25, and transform it into 36. What happens if you add negative Das to 25? 25 plus negative 11, of course, is 14. So, thinking to myself, so far, this equation is remarkable. It's fantastic. It works perfectly. It is exactly what we want to see and hear it, and it's teachable and it's understandable. But what about the negative 11? What about the 14? Is that anywhere? Does that make sense? Does that fit the equation too? So it turns out, yeah, perfectly also. It's a perfect equation. Why? Because if you open Parshas Miketz, in Parshas Miketz, after Yaakov Avinu has been convinced by the Shvatim to send Binyamin down to Mitzrayim with them to get more food, because it's against his better job, he lost Yosef already, enough tzuris already, and now I'm going to risk Binyamin, the only other child from my beloved Rachel over here, right? He has to do it. They need the food. Anyhow, he knows it's Yosef by now. He's figured it out. Okay? That's a different parsha of itself. So he packs them up. They're all going to go into Mitzrayim, and Yaakov invokes the name of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, Kel Shekai. He says, Kel Shekai should go with you, protect you, bring you back safely, especially Binyamin. Right? Why does he use this name? Why not Hashem or Aleph Dalet Nun Yud? Why specifically Kel Shekai? Said Rashi. He says because Yaakov is saying that the same God that said die, because Shekai, right, Shin Dalet Yud is Sh, die, right? The God who said die, said enough. The same God who said enough to the light of Maaseh Bereshis, stopped it, should also say enough to my troubles. The God of limitations. right? Not himself not limited, but he imposes limitations on creation. Let him limit my suffering over here. So, what's that talking about? What do you mean? What like did he stop? When did he say die? So you have this world, called the Halal. Inside will be Ma'aseh Bereshis, but right now it's Simsum, it's constriction. There's no light, there's no creation, complete Hester Panim. It's like going to the construction site, they've dug the hole already. Big, huge, massive hole, nothing else. Right? Just a big, huge, massive hole. In there is where they're going to build. But it's just a massive hole right now. The halal, like a big, huge, massive hole of Hester Panim. And now Hashem is going to make Ma'aseh Bereshis. But you don't do it with darkness, you do it with light. Which light? The Or Ein Sof. Right? The ultimate light is the light that God will use to make everything. The Or Ein Sof, it's in everything. It's in you, it's in me. Everything in this world is made of Or Ein Sof inside at the core. So God's making this light go back into the hole, so to speak. Builds one sphere, builds another level basically. Now, the problem with this light, now what's the problem with the miracle? Because it's the same thing. Nace, this light, same thing, right? Why is the word nace, nace? Why is the miracle called a nace? Because the word nace means banner. Every time a miracle is performed, it's a big banner that says, hi, I'm God, I'm alive and well, and I run the world. Right? And I just proved it. Boom, boom, right? Bad guy's gone, good guy's saved. Just like that. Big miracles, right? Every time there's a big miracle, it's a gilui of Hashem's light. This light's coming into the halal, this like big huge, cavity, this darkness, Hester Panim, it comes in and makes a level. On this level where the light now is, there is gilui Shechina. There's the gilui of Hashem. Hashem is revealed. Everything this light touches reveals God. As long as some of the darkness remains somewhere inside this big huge ball of darkness, there'll be room for evil to exist, and therefore the possibility for man to have free will. You follow? Right? That's what he does. But where do you stop it? At what point do you stop the light? So there are 5 levels. What Kabbalah refers to as Adam Kadmon, the first man, Atzilus, after that, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, the lowest of all worlds. Each of these worlds have 10 sphira, 10 levels of their own. 5 worlds, 10 levels, 50 levels altogether. The light's coming down. So what does God say? Die. Why does it say die? Because the Gematria of die itself is 14. So God's not only saying stop, He's saying specifically stop 14 levels from the bottom. 50, subtract 14, of course is 36. Because that's the number of the Gilui of Hashem. Right? So the light stops 14 levels at the bottom. Why? Because that's where evil's going to exist. So that evil can exist so that we can have free will. So therefore, 25 negative dust subtracts 11, right? You have 14, which of course is the place of evil. So that's why when Hashem says about Amalek in Parshas B'Shalach, and I'm going to take an oath that I'm at war with Amalek until the end of days, that the basic, the essence of Esav and his world, right, of the 11 chieftains, he said, Yad, my hand, Yad al case ka. But the Gematria, of course, the word of Yad is, of course, the 14. Right? Because that's Amalek's world. That's what has to be destroyed. Therefore, right, if the 14 levels are at the very bottom of creation, what do we have to do? Draw the light of 36 down. Right? To the very bottom. Now when you light your Shabbos candles, right, let's say you're lighting this B'ezras Hashem tomorrow, Shabbos tomorrow, B'ezras Hashem, you light the Shabbos candles, your husband comes in, he sees you lighting close like this foot off the ground, right? You bend over like this, lighting your candles. What are you doing? I'm lighting Shabbos candles. Why there? Right? There's a specific shelf for your Shabbos, or the tables, a place for your Shabbos candle where everyone can see it. Shalom bayis, right? That's like such important thing over here, right? Why are you lighting so close to the ground? Well, I saw you last year light your Hanukkah candles like that, so close to the ground. Right? Between 3 and 10 tefachim from the ground. You look, let's forget, Hanukkah. You also could have used the big table, but you look, so close to the ground, so I thought it was a good thing. No. That's their Hanukkah. Ner Shel Shabbos, you put up on a table, up on a stand, where everyone can see it, right? So then what's the difference? The difference is because this is the light of 36, the Ner Shel Chanukah. And the light of 36 has to come down to the bottom, the bottom of creation, the final 14 levels. So therefore we light close to the ground, as close as you can get without being on the ground itself, for the sake of kavod, to symbolize that when I light these Ner Shel Chanukah, and I am megala the light of 25 through the Ner of 36, I am in effect drawing down the light that God said stop, the final 14 levels, because that's my job. That's my job. So 25 plus 11 equals 36. 25 subtract 11 equals 14. And the most amazing thing about this is that mathematical formula actually is a mathematical representation of the Eitz Das Tov Ra. Because what is the Eitz Das Tov Ra? It's an Eitz Das, right? It's a Das, Tov, positive 11, Ra, negative 11. Positive Das and negative Das. You have right before you an actual mathematical equation describing the very essence of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's a tree of positive dust and negative dust. It can lead to illumination. It can lead to the revelation of God, 36 ayeka, right? Or it can result in Hester Panim, banishment from the garden, and thousands of years of struggling through darkness. That's the choice that man has. This formula represents that. It's perfect. It's not, you have to appreciate, it's mind-boggling, without a question, right? Works beautifully. You can go a long way with this formula, basically. But for the sake of brevity, right, it really breaks down to this positive dust and this negative dust, which corresponds to Yaakov and Esav. Because we know the negative dust, anyhow, corresponds to Esav, right? And they're twins. They're twins, but they're mirror twins, right? They're not identical twins in as much as they're not like each other, right? They're twins because they're born together, but they're complete opposites. Yaakov is Ish Yatam Yeshabah Halim. Esav is out in the field, killing people, murdering, stealing, all kinds of things, right? He's an exact opposite. He has a dust, and he has a dust. Yeshli Kol, Yeshli Rav, right? They both, have a daya. They both have a das about the world, but they're completely opposite. Yaakov serves a Kodesh Baruch Hu, Esav is, pillaging the world in the end. So that's the positive. The positive 11 is Yaakov's way of looking at things, and the negative 11 is Esav's way of looking at things. And if you go Esav's path, you result in the reality of Amalek, which is 14, right? And if you go Yaakov's way, you result in the reality of 36. As we said before, it always is part of his life. This is an extremely important point. Why? Because that's the evaluation on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. How well you struggled this year. Let me say struggle, but how hard you worked on yourself to achieve the positive 11, the positive dust, the clarity about what this world is about, how to use it in a meaningful and eternal way. That's the evaluation. What is a chet? What is a sin? Sin is abuse, right? Sin means you abuse the world. The world does sins over every single day. They don't call it abuse. Why not? Because they figured the world's here for their pleasure, for their fun. So as long as I'm not stealing from somebody, right? What difference does it make what I'm doing over here? Torah says no. Since the world is specifically for the sake of perfecting you and the world and coming close to Kodesh Baruch Hu, any time that you use this world in a way that does not promote that, that's called chet. That's called chet. That's a mistake. That's the valuation of the Yemein Rayim. How many times this year, all chet, I ate. What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? So I overate. No, it's more than that. All the times I ate, not for the sake of trying to come closer to Kodesh Baruch Hu and maximizing the perfection of my Bereshis. I spoke too much, whatever I did, but I didn't do it for the sake of furthering the cause of my Bereshis. That's the evaluation. It goes one step further than that. At least one step further. Why? How is that? Because we see that Yaakov Avinu does a very interesting thing. The Medrash says that when Yaakov Avinu came home after working for Lavan for 20 years, he didn't have to fight Esav. He didn't have to confront Esav. He could have gone home south, around the Dead Sea, to Beersheba, and avoided Esav altogether. In fact, Yaakov's compared to somebody who walks up to a vicious dog and pulls his tail, pulls his ears. You're looking for trouble over here. So the Medrash seems to fault Yaakov, Ke'ilu, as if he made a mistake. But how could that be? You open the Chumash indicates nothing that it was a mistake. And not that it wasn't a mistake, but the most important transformation of all of history takes place as a result of that. He goes from being a Yaakov to a Yisrael. He fights with the angel of Esav and goes from being a Yaakov to Yisrael. We're called Bnei Israel. It's called Eretz Israel. It's such an important event in the history of the Jewish people and the world that how could Yaakov be called doing a mistake to have this name change? Do it someplace else where it makes more sense. And why did Yaakov do this, in fact, if it wasn't the right thing to do in the first place? Because Baruch Hu was not masking. Because Yaakov was already in the process of transformation. Because the problem with being a twin is that you can be just like the twin in the end. Both ways, right? Just go to Rome. The Pope wears a kippah. He wears a red kippah, right? Because that's the color of Edom, right? But he wears a kippah nonetheless. There is Roman Catholicism. There is all kinds of religion. Esav can be a religious person, a very religious person, a extremist in terms of religion. And Yaakov can be just like Esav. Just go to Yorkdale, go to the malls, go watch the Jewish people shop until they drop. We can be, thank you.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Amen.
We can be better Greeks than the Greeks, better Americans than the Americans, better Canadians than the Canadians. We can be just like Esav. And Yaakov was trying to purge that from himself. That's why he bought the Bechor from Esav. That's why he took the Bruchas from Esav, because he was trying to get every last connection between him. Because as long as Esav had the Bechor, and as long as Esav had the Bruchas, they had to work together. Esav would have been David Melech, the leader of the Jewish people. Yaakov would have been the Gadol Ador. But they had to work together. But it wasn't fitting, because Esav wasn't cut in the same cloth in the end. There wasn't working out. So Yaakov worked as hard as he could to expunge from Esav all aspects of Kedusha, to bring him to the side of Kedusha, and leave Esav like an empty husk in the end. Now, what you don't know is whatever's happening with Yaakov and Esav is also happening with Rachel and Leah. Because the same way that Yaakov and Esav are twins, Rachel and Leah are also twins. And Chazal point out that you went to the local post office, there was a big poster that says, the older one for the older one, and the younger one for the younger one. Leah had to marry Esav, and Rachel was meant for Yaakov Avinu. However, when Yaakov acquired from Esav any connection he had to God, Torah, and the future Jewish people, he assumed the same thing would happen to Rachel as well. Whatever Leah had to contribute to the family would be absorbed by Rachel, and therefore by marrying Rachel, Yaakov would have had the totality of all the Kedusha necessary to create the Jewish people. However, it did not work out that way. Why? Because the next morning he wakes up and he finds out that Leah in fact is married to him. He says, what are you doing over here? She says, I'm married to you. He says, I understand that, but that wasn't supposed to happen like that. You're supposed to marry Rachel. How'd you get in? Right, Rachel gave it the siman in the whole thing. Does Yaakov annul the marriage? No. Technically speaking, you don't even need a divorce, because it's called a mekach tos, a mistaken purchase over here. Should have been cancelled, I'm afraid. Does Yaakov cancel it? No. He realizes he has to marry Leah. He realizes hashgacha pratis, and he realizes if Rachel and Leah are two individual people to whom he has to be married, it means he has not yet taken all of Esav out from Esav. So therefore, because of that, Yaakov on his own goes back to confront Esav specifically for the sake of taking whatever is left over from Esav back to the side of Kedusha and leaving Esav completely empty. That's Yaakov's whole drive, right? But the Gemara says, and in the process of doing that, he becomes Yisrael, right? But the Gemara says that anybody who calls Avram anymore, Ke'ilu, that's his name, is over a positive mitzvah and a negative mitzvah, because the Torah says, your name shall be Avraham, no longer will you be called Avram. Right? Positive, negative mitzvah. Likewise by Sarah Menu. Right? Her name was changed. But the Gemara says, what about Yaakov Avinu? So the Gemara says, no, because the Torah itself calls Yisrael Yaakov later on. So therefore we too can call Yisrael Yaakov. But the Gemara doesn't explain why. Why was that the case? Because by Avram Avinu, when his name was changed, symbolizing his completion, Yitzchak had yet to be born. Once Avram was changed, he was able to give it all over to Yitzchak. Likewise by Sarah Main. But when Yaakov became Yisrael, was transformed into Yisrael at that point, he already had given birth to 11 sons. Were not mushpah by the change. Binyamin was not yet born, right? They'll conceive. And as a result of that, he got part of what Yaakov had already transformed and became Yisrael. So as a result of that, Binyamin was considered to be a nation unto himself. Very unique status. But the other 11 Shvatim had not yet been fixed up, and therefore history becomes the process of transforming the rest of the nation from being a Yaakov to Yisrael. And how did Yaakov do that? By crossing the Yabok. He crossed the Yabok, but Esav, the whole thing. So Yabok symbolizes the transformation of Yaakov to Yisrael. That's the basic idea, which means what? Getting rid of all of Das Esav from the family and only subscribing to Das Yaakov, the positive Das, to look at the world only in a way that produces Kedusha and furthers the cause of creation. That's what Yaakov's doing. That's the idea of Yisrael. Right? Now the only problem is what are we supposed to be doing? So Yaakov did that, right? What about the rest of us, right? So the rest of history is about the completion of that process. The rest of history is about the Jewish people going through tikkun after tikkun after tikkun for the sake of transforming us from being a Yaakov to a Yisrael. We keep trying to be an Esav, right? We keep trying to be like, Das Esav, and Yaakov can be like Esav, like twins basically. But Kodesh Baruch Hu put up with for periods of time, and eventually, the boom comes down on the Jewish people, we start all over again, and this goes on for a long time until we get to the end of the exile. At some point in time, there's a cutoff point. We're developing, and history is about this transformation from Yaakov to Israel. At some point in time, Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to say, enough is enough already. Where do you stand? Are you a Yaakov, or are you a Yisrael? Right? Do you subscribe to the Das of Yaakov, positive 11, or the negative 11 of Esav? How do you look at the world? And don't think you can't be from at the same time. You can be from and think like Esav. Not a problem. Yitzhar has no problem with that. He'll let you do all the mitzvahs you want. Just don't work on Geula. Just don't bring history to an end. Then he's finished. But, you can be from, as long as you extend the exile, as long as you can be from and be an Esav-like person too. Right? And vice versa. Works all different angles over here. But you got to transform. Right? So Chazal say, there's different Numeric Chazal. As of 1990, we spoke about this before, we entered the year of the 10th hour, corresponding to the 10th hour, when Adam ate the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's important detail, important piece of information, because it means we're literally in the period of Tikkun, which everything is more significant today than it was even 50, 60 years ago, for that matter. Right? But keeping in mind that the whole point is that every individual has to cross their own personal Yabok. Now, Yabok itself, by the way, is a very significant number, because the result brings down that the Gematria Yabok is 112, and it corresponds to the names of Hashem, Vav Belad Nun Yud, plus Yud Kei Vav Kei, plus Aleph Hey Yud Hey, these three names. And when a person works their way up, the ladder of Torah goes deeper and deeper and deeper into Torah, and penetrates the surface, and goes further and further, becomes a complete Jew, an Adam Shamlein. Right? They acquire these three names, so to speak, and they are set to cross their own personal Yabok river, so to speak. That's the basic idea. Right? Cross the Yabok for the sake of becoming a Yisrael. Leaving behind your Yaakov status, which leaves you as a twin of Esav, and becoming unique as a Yisrael, a hybrid, a synthesis of all the good that's in both of them in one individual. That's the goal of every individual Jew. That's the goal of the entire nation. Right? And Yabok symbolizes the transformation. Now, in 1999, I was sitting at my computer writing this whole thing up. It's not as advanced as today, but the basic idea, I'd yet to come across the equation aspect of it, but the story of Yaakov, becoming a Yisrael, the whole thing, I'm writing it up and an email comes in. It's 1999, halfway through the year, and an email comes in. Bing! You know, you get that bing. You're like, oh, fuck, son, I got mail. You know, it's like, go check it out right away, you know. So I did. I checked it out right in the spot. My Yitzhahara came me, you know, and I said, God, who wrote me? I get so few letters. So when the letter comes in, it's like, wow, someone wrote me. Oh, it was a mistake. You know, spam mail. Not this time. This time the letter comes in, and it's bizarre. I can't understand, you know, what this did to me. You have to be there, right? It's so bizarre. Hashgacha pratis is just the most fantastic, wonderful thing when it becomes so obvious. I'm writing this whole thing up, and I'm talking about the Yabok River as a symbol, and I don't know why it's a symbol, but I just know it's a symbol because it happened to be where the whole thing took place. Right? And I'm writing this thing up, and an email comes in, and it says only one little statement with no explanation. Right? Y2K in Hebrew is Yud Beis Kuf. Your book. And I figured out, yeah, Yud Beis Kuf. Yeah. So what? Yeah, okay. Well, now I'm looking at, you know, what do you mean? You know, nothing behind the email. It's just a flat email. But like, you know, what do you mean? You know, so I didn't know at that point in time. I just thought it's highly, highly significant. Right? That Yud Beis Kuf. What a coincidence. But the coincidence was the fact that I was working on this Devar Torah precisely when that piece of information came in. Circulating. Just going around and around and around. No explanation. I don't even want, you know, where it came from. What made the person think of that? And what did he care? I mean, it's like saying, you know, by the way, the Gematria of that wall over there is equal to your license plate. Okay. That's a coincidence. And... right? You know, what does it mean? Yeah, I pointed out. Okay, you know, got nothing else better to do time? Fine. What do you mean Y2K is equal to your book? Happened to be that year was the 6th year of the Shemitah cycle, right? Which the Gemara says is significant because in the Shemitah cycle that Mashiach is going to come, the 6th year is going to be a year that people are either going to hear the shofar blowing or people talking about the imminent arrival of Mashiach. And Y2K definitely promoted that. Both the Jewish world and the non-Jewish world, people who never spoke about Messiah and Mashiach, were now talking because of the potential damage that Y2K was going to do. It didn't. It did. Right? Gone. Right? Failed. I mean, it didn't quite fail. $64 billion is a lot of money to spend fixing the problem. We just have to be smart enough, Baruch Hashem, to fix the problem. And I think, in retrospect, HaKadosh Baruch Hu let us do that so it wouldn't be a technological disaster. So we would ask ourselves the questions, now what was it for? So we realized it wasn't for the nations of the world, it was for the Jewish people. To make us stop and think about Geula. Right? To realize that the whole world of Esav, which is technology, can come down just like that. Just like that. Remember that word. Just like that. You know, just boom, big stuff. A whole world. Where was I yesterday? I was in... Where was I? I was in Baltimore. What did I see? I just saw something. What I saw. I don't know exactly what it was. I just remember, I'll come to it later on. I just remember such a fantastic device that they had technologically, you know, they had built this as a computer and it allowed you to be able to do something. I can't remember what it was. But I thought to myself, but what happens if the system goes out? What if there's a blackout? You know? And as a result of the blackout, no one can access this information anymore. The whole thing just collapses just like that. I mean, Y2K woke us up to the reality of how vulnerable we are. We're very strong as long as the power flows and the computer works the way it's supposed to work. The moment it stops flowing, we become weaker than the generations before that. Right? We don't even know how to light a fire with 2 stones anymore at this point in time to survive. There's no electricity. You know, but that's the reality of Esau's world. You know. Then comes 2001. Really, actually, towards the end of 2000, 57, 61, the 7th year of the Shemitah cycle, and there's a new intifada, right? Phase 2. Ariel Sharon goes up the Temple Mount, right? Instigates the Arabs. They throw stones, and by Rosh Hashanah, mamash on time, a new war begins, just like the Gemara predicted after the 6th year. 7th year is a year of war, but the event of events that changed everything. After the year of Y2K, which is spelt your book, right? That changed everybody's perspective. You have to go back and think 1 minute before this happened, what you were thinking and what you were doing and where you were going. right? And what the world was thinking, and how the sun was shining, and the future was promising, and there was no insecurity. And believe me, I used to go on speaking trips before this event, and I used to show up for international flights an hour and a half before the flight with no problem. Today, one of the reasons I don't travel so much, with the amount of time wasted at the airport, because the security is just, why? Because this thing changed everything. 19 terrorists go ahead and they blow up, right? They destroy, and it should never have happened. Physically, technologically, should never have happened, but they get away with it, and 2 planes flying to the side of twin towers, destroying them, right, in 103 minutes. 19 terrorists, there's supposed to be 20 terrorists. Only 19 made it. And the Gematria of 19 and 103 is Egla Zahav, the golden calf, which is Asa's representation in this world, the world of money. The World Trade Center was literally, the World Trade Center is a symbol of Asa's world. But it happens on the 11th day of September, hit by Flight 11, the only 2 buildings in the shape of an 11 that have 110 stories is 11 times 10. To say what? After the world of the year of your book, right? The Twin Towers, all these 11s, what's it supposed to mean? We hit a crossroad over here. We call it Parshas Drach. Because Baruch was saying history is coming down to the end, folks. Where do you stand? Is it Asa's das? Right? The negative 11? Well, let me tell you something. That negative 11, it looks big and powerful and inviting, like straw. Whether you believe in conspiracies or not, whether you believe that anybody other than Arabs brought those towers down or not, is irrelevant. The point is, and this is indisputable, those buildings came down at the speed of gravity, and it was physically impossible to do with those 2 airplanes. How did it happen? There's theories. Doesn't make a difference. It happened. It happened. They came down so fast. And the amazing thing is, as they came down so fast, there was something else that came down so fast. It was big and powerful and mighty. And I was an architecture student. I went to those buildings with an engineer as part of a class program when I was in school. And they were bragging, nothing will take these things down. Not airplanes, not fires, not winds, not earthquakes, the solid core, nothing will take them down. They came down. Nothing else in the world, by the way, has come down like that. Buildings that burned for 24 hours still haven't come down. Hit by airplanes still haven't come down. These ones came down, boom. Conspiracy doesn't make a difference. They came down so fast. Asa's world, boom, 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 right? What else came down so fast like that? Of Asa's world? Didn't quite come down yet. In 1986, out of the blue, no one expects it, no one sees it coming. Communism, poof. One day it's there, and one day it's gone. One day it's you've got all these Russians who are staunch adversaries of the Cold War, the whole thing, and this Gorbachev with perestroika changing everything. One day the Jews were fighting, get the Jews out, let the Jews go, they can't get them out. The next thing they're flying out, leaving just like that. Poof, just like that. And what's amazing is the Medrash says the following thing: Parshas Vayeshev, chapter 37, which follows after chapter 36, where the 11 tribes of Esav, in fact, are mentioned. It says, Elu told us Yaakov, Yosef, and Rashi says, what about the rest of the Shvatim? They're also told us of Yaakov. Now, Yosef is the main one over here, right? Why? Because the Pasuk says in Ovadia that Yaakov, the base Yaakov, is a fire. The base Yosef is a flame, because the flame extends the fire to do its damage, right? Without a flame, the fire can't do anything in the end, right? And it goes out. And base Esav is kash, straw. The flame will go out from Yaakov and burn up Esav, who's kash, who's straw. Now the Medrash says this, why? Because when Yaakov looked back into chapter 36, he's standing in chapter 37, right up the Chumash, he's looking back at chapter 36 and says, wow, look at all those chieftains of Esav, and all those tribes, and all, and that's before they all start multiplying. Today there's like billions of them today in the world, all over the world, right? He says, how in the world can we ever conquer Esav? How's it possible? No way, no how. We're 12 million Jews. You know what we're supposed to do? Said, Torah tells you. But it says, don't worry. It's all appearances. Like straw. Yosef has the ability to be able to look at the physical world, see where the Kedusha is, to extract it and reveal it. Potiphar, who's living in Mitzrayim, he's the butcher, the chief butcher of Paro. You can't get much lower than that. And he says, I see that God is with you. Through what you do, I see God. Paro himself is Modi, he agrees. Through Yosef. He sees it. Why? Because Yosef is the 11. Yosef is that missing factor. You take Yosef and you're able to see the light of creation and to reveal it. And that's really in Rosh Hashanah what everyone's Kodesh Baruch Hu is asking us. The Gra brings down, in every generation is a Mashiach ben Yosef, either in person or sperm of the Jewish people. In Abraham's time, he was Mashiach ben Yosef. In Yitzchak, he was Mashiach ben Yosef. And Yaakov, Esther, in her time was Mashiach ben Yosef, says the Gra. Remarkable idea. He's not even Mashiach ben Yosef, supposed to be male, female. She was saving the Jewish people. But Mordechai did it for her. He was also the other aspect, right? Mordechai says, we can't do a thing like that. Mordechai says, come on. Look at the way the world the way I see it. The Yeshua's coming. You want to be a part? You don't want to be a part? God's going to do it anyhow. What are we scared about over here, right? Yeah. That's the Dasi 11. Every Rosh Hashanah, Kodesh Baruch Hu is asking us the same question. Which one do you subscribe to? The positive 11 or the negative 11? Yeah, I know you're familiar. You keep the Shabbos and the mitzvahs and all that. You know, if you did, I wouldn't be asking the question right now, right? I know, but really, it could run, right? So what's the litmus test? How do you know where you subscribe? So the Malbim is a remarkable thing. This is a great quote if you're somebody who likes Eretz Yisrael. If you're not someone who likes Eretz Yisrael, it's a tough quote. The Malbim says, history has to come to an end. Every Excel has to come to an end. You can fight all you want, you can kick and scream all you want, no matter how much you like it, every Excel has to come to an end. The Gula has to come at some point in time. That's what history is all about. And it will. There's going to come a time in the Shibud, the actual physical oppression of the Jewish people, because we're Jewish, is going to come to a conclusion. When in Russia collapsed in 1986, it's a fulfillment of the Malbim's words, right? That's the last place that millions of Jews are being held captive against their will because they were Jewish. When that Russia collapsed, it's the end of the Shibud. He says when that happens, the Jewish people will divide into two groups. And he calls those two groups Yaakov and Yisrael. He says, which is which, right? He says the Yaakov group will say, wow, the oppression's over. And not only that, the Gentiles are coming to us and making us, chairman of the Federal Reserve, right? Giving us positions in the cabinet. They respect our opinion. They're coming to us for technology. They like us. After killing us and murdering us and spitting at us and calling us all kinds of names, they're finally actually showing us some cover, right? That's the Gula. What else could you ask for? I'm staying. I'm staying in America. I'm staying in Canada. I'm committed. I don't need to go anywhere else in the world. Baruch Hashem. I live by Torah mitzvahs, and I have respect. I'm being successful over here. He says that's the majority of the Jewish people. That's the Yaakov group, he says. But a small contingent, which he calls Yisrael, are going to say, that's nice. There's no question about it. It's beneficial. Let's take advantage of it, right? Through all this time, why not? But it's not the Gula. It's a stepping stone. It's a stepping stone. Rather, until we go back as a nation to Eretz Yisrael, until we build the Beis Hamikdash and the Shekhinah is sure once again in the Beis Hamikdash and on the Jewish people, and the whole world sees this reality, that's not called Gula until then. When that happens, that's called Gula. And we will do everything we can to bring that about one way or another. We're committed to that process at the end. The Malbim says, in the merit of that small group, the Gula Shlema comes. In the merit of that small group, that's the Yisrael. Funny how we should use those two names. Divide one personality, one person, into two groups, and how they relate to connect. And he says, why? Because the name of Yaakov is the name of Yaakov in Chutz La'aretz, and Yisrael is the name of Yaakov in Eretz Yisrael. So it turns out, at the end of history, the litmus test of where you stand in this negative 11 process is how you feel about living in Eretz Yisrael. Why should that be the case? Because that is the land of Das. Eretz Yisrael is all about Das. All the issues that either push a person or keep them away are all Das issues. What are you going to eat? The Eitz Das Tov or the Eitz Das Ra? Right? Which 11 do you subscribe to? Because you have to understand that when you live amongst the Gentiles and you have no yearning to go back home, they notice it. I get letters from Gentiles and B'nai Noach saying, "What's with you people? Right? What's with you brothers and sisters over there? Right? They got the land back and they're giving it away and they're happy where they are. Right? Don't they believe in the redemption? You know how painful it is to get that from a Gentile? You know, and you can't even convince the Jews. But that's the litmus test. When you bind to that, you bind to redemption, you bind to the dust. It's all one big package deal. That's the din. Right? That's the equation of life. And it says in this next week's Parsha, Hashem, choose life that you may live. It means choose positive 11. Choose the positive dust. That you should go from 25 to 36 and live this world and the next world as a result of it. Be zeich b'Zras Hashem to do exactly that, and hopefully b'Zras Hashem this will be the year we'll see it all come to conclusion with the positive dust. We'll finally once and for all overcome the negative dust, and we can be kind to pass it. B'Yamahu Yashem Echad Shmei Echad.
Amen.